The Dogman Cometh. What up, y'all? I'm Belil Black, and welcome back to The Dogman Cometh. Today, we're going to be talking about yet another Dogman encounter here in the state of Arkansas. Now, this one is, it goes back a little while. I mean, it's been years, a couple decades ago at least, maybe 3 decades ago or more. However, this man who wishes to remain anonymous, I couldn't find his name. I guess he didn't give it. But I found this encounter on a few different websites, and, pardon me. But I found it on a few different websites, and none of them mentioned his name. But the encounter is an interesting one, and he says that he encountered one of these creatures twice in his lifetime around the same area, which could mean one of two things. Either he is incredibly unlucky, or there's a breeding population in Arkansas, in northeastern Arkansas to be exact. Not to mention what else could be out there, to the west of, western Arkansas, southern Arkansas. But I've been finding more and more encounters here in northeastern Arkansas, and it's making me a little nervous because I had my encounter here where I live. I'm not going to mention the name of the place that I live because I'm paranoid like that and I don't trust people because people are fucking crazy. Not y'all, y'all are okay. But but I will say I live very, very close to Memphis, but on the Arkansas side, and and this is a very interesting story. All right, so let's get into it, I guess, and see what we got here. All right, it reads as such. I am 44 years old now. I've had 2 incidents in my life in which I am absolutely confident I saw this large hairy wolf or wolf-like creature or whatever you want to call this thing. Once was in the 1970s, and I was rather young, maybe 7 or 8 at the time, and the creature was looking at me in my bed from the window on a night that was quite stormy before I saw it. I remember how big and broad it was, and how it stood on 2 legs as a man would. It was a dark night, but I could see the thing easily as the departed storm was still close enough to flash lightning that lit up everything outside. The thing had a wolf face, yellowish eyes, but not bright yellow, not fluorescent like either, more of a subdued yellow. It had pointy ears that seemed to keep moving the entire time, like he was twitching them all at the same time for some reason. It never snarled, growled, or howled, but it just looked at me from the outside of the wrought iron storm door. I was in bed, trying to settle down and go back to sleep after the storm, which rattled me as a kid. For some reason, I felt like I had to look outside. I turned over and sat up. I was not even 20 feet from this thing, and separated only by a wrought iron door and its glass windows. I became terrified to the point that I started yelling like crazy. My grandmother and little sister were asleep in a bed in the room closer to the door, but at the angle that they could not sit up and see what I saw. I was literally scared out of my wits. I started screaming, and quickly my grandmother woke up, turned on a lamp, then came over to me quickly, and of course asked what was wrong. I was staring at the thing, and I could only point toward it. I couldn't speak a word. When I pointed, it started backing away from the door as my grandmother looked to see what scared me. She never said she saw it, but I'm confident that she did. Her voice changed, and she was immediately wide awake. My sister woke up about this time and stayed in bed. She was younger than me, and she began crying because I was. She was scared because I was. I saw the thing turn and move away, not at a fast pace, just stepped away and faded into the dark. All the commotion woke my grandfather, who was flipping on lights as he came to the back room to see what was going on and what all the commotion was about. My grandmother saw him enter the room as he turned on the main light. At this instant, she told him to get his gun and go outside because something was out there and it had scared the living shit out of me. He did as she said because her voice was in a panic and he knew that something wasn't right. He went into his room and got a gun. You could hear him going into the closet, and he went outside turning on all manner of lights as he went, inside and outdoors. He was outside about 10 minutes and we could see him easily. He came in and talked low and right into my grandmother's ear. I didn't hear what was said that night, and I was still a scared wreck the rest of the night. He slept in the back room with the rest of us, rifle still at his side as he lay on a different bed by himself. He left many lights on in the house and all of them outside. I never could get him to tell me what he saw or found, but before my grandmother died in 2001, she told me when he went outside that night, he found muddy footprints on the concrete shaped like paw prints, but really big. My grandmother made me wait until I was in my 20s when she told me, and I remember what a chill it gave me, even being that much older. She also told me she saw it for a few seconds when I pointed out the door and when she asked, what was wrong. She said it scared her so bad she did not ever want to talk about it again with her husband or anyone else. The year would have been 1977 or 79, somewhere in between there, most likely. I knew they didn't have a dog at the time, so it wasn't pet dog tracks, and the paw prints were way too large for a dog anyway. Whatever it was, it never came back. My grandparents lived in that house from 1960 to 1994 when my grandfather had a massive heart attack and died. My grandmother died in 2001. We never talked about that night again. Just that one time in my 20s when she could not sleep one night and I was in the kitchen. She would wake up and sit in the kitchen many nights, worrying about her grandchildren, I'm sure. I stayed with her often on weekends in my teens and early 20s, but I never slept in the bed that faced that door again. And she made my grandfather's construction crew put a heavy wooden door over that wrought iron door so that no one or nothing could see, in the day after it all happened. The second time I seen one of these creatures was around 1988 to 89, early one December morning before sunrise, going deer hunting with two other guys. We were all in a pickup truck, riding to a hunting location about an hour or so away. It was around 3:30 in the morning, and it was still dark out at that hour. We were going down a state highway that runs along the I-40 here in eastern Arkansas, probably going about 45 or so, and about to come to an area that turned so that the driver was about to start slowing down to make a big turn. We were talking amongst ourselves, no radio on, when a huge animal that looked like a werewolf, no joke, it darted out of a field in front of the truck. It was very close, and I thought we were going to hit it. But I clearly saw lots of teeth as the thing looked at us as it was crossing in front of the moving truck. It looked pissed off. It was on 2 feet, but way too fast. Its fur was light gray, kind of dirty, but still almost like a cream color. We all saw the thing for 3 or 4 seconds, and everyone yelled out a few curse words. The driver slammed on the brakes, and all 3 of us jumped out to see what it was, or possibly try to shoot it. We were loaded up with rifles since, as I mentioned, we were going deer hunting. We saw where it went into a field for a few feet or so, but we couldn't see it anymore. You could hear it kind of huffing and puffing as it went further and further away. We heard it for maybe 5 seconds after jumping out of the truck, and then it was quiet. I was wanting to fire a few shots, and see if we could hit something, or scare it into making some kind of noise. But one of the guys reminded me quickly that the interstate was close and a rifle bullet would reach a car, out there easily and could hurt someone, or worse. The truck was still running and the doors were wide open. We all felt better, having the firepower, but we quickly got back into the truck, shut the doors, and took off. We never saw it again, but we talked all day about what it was. No one thought to check for footprints, or anything like that. The location of the first encounter, however, is a very small area known as Horseshoe Lake, Arkansas. But it actually had a Hughes, Arkansas mailing address. The old house was demolished and cleared out between 98 and 2000. But the old address still shows on Google Maps. It was 132 Bream Road, Hughes, Arkansas. I think someone bought the lot and built a nice new house a few years ago, so the encounter didn't happen at the house that's there today. You might want to emphasize the encounter happened back in the 1970s when a different house it stood on the land. Back when this occurred, the man's grandparents' land was about 2 acres, it says, with their house of maybe 1,500 square feet. They had a large shop where his grandfather ran a small construction company, and an empty lot area for things like boats and backhoes and stuff like that. It says the second encounter was about 2 to 3 miles from a place called Blackfish Lake, Arkansas, on the north side of Highway 218, where it meets Bing's Store Road that goes over Interstate 40. It was literally in that curve area. And people, I mean, there are numerous accounts of these werewolf-looking creatures. You know, I mean, they've been encountered across many states, including Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arkansas, Tennessee, and numerous other places, and not just in the United States or in North America even. I mean, in the UK, I'm sure that they have them all over the world, man. I mean, just about anywhere they've got some kind of werewolf legend, you're probably going to find some encounters from real people who are still alive. You'd be absolutely surprised how many of these encounters are, how many of these encounters are out there, and how many of them are really frightening to the people who experienced these things. And you'd be even more surprised by how many of them are completely dismissed by the general population, which is incredibly, irresponsible as a species. We think that we're the top dog on the food chain. We think we're at the very top. I'm here to tell you, people, you're prey. We're all prey. Which is, we weren't born with claws or teeth. We weren't born with venom. We're prey. I mean, that's why we are as we are. That's why we get those feelings of being watched. That's prey. That's prey intuition right there, man. Why do you think a deer, any kind of deer, why do you think a deer, it seems like the second before it even hears you, that head comes up and it's looking and listening and trying to smell, just to see what's out there, to try to determine whether or not its life is in danger. People do that too. This is the reaction of prey. We're not biologically predators. We're biologically a food source for predators. And we need to quit acting so high and mighty and start trying to learn what's out there. Because as intelligent as we are as a species, we're really pretty stupid in the grand scheme of things. We know next to nothing. We need to try to understand these people. Try to understand, the emotion and the fear that they went through. And once we can emotionally understand our fellow man in some of their most, dire moments when they encounter these things, and it trust me, people. I mean, I'm losing touch with the words that I want to use right now, because I've actually seen one of these things, and it's not fun. These things are incredibly horrific creatures. They're terrifying. We need to pay attention to these things, man. We really do. Because who knows what could be lurking out there in the woods, in the forests, along the streams, in the darkest recesses of our world. There are things mankind will never understand. Things that we're not meant to understand. And hopefully one day we'll at least understand that we're not meant to understand everything. But I digress on my point. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Dogman Cometh. Thank you for watching and listening, and I will see you next time. Until then, take it easy, my friends.